What's up, guys? Luke Johns from Fisherman's Warehouse, and today I'm joined by our Sacramento store manager, Austin Wilson. I know we just got done fishing the Western Bass Shootout down on the California Delta, so we got a little bit to talk about there. And, it seems like all of California is finally starting to heat up. We've got the weather, and the fishing is following right along behind it. Everywhere's starting to get really good. Let's kick it off. I know you didn't quite have the finish you wanted at the Western Shootout, but, you got a solid finish. You got a check, and, at the end of the day, at least you got that going.
Yeah, I got my money back. The Delta has been, obviously we had an off-limits period, so we weren't able to be on the water a whole lot, but in practice, we had 2 days of practice, and I had a lot of bites in practice. I slowed way down. I was throwing a worm, and I had a screw lock in my worm, so I wasn't hooking any of these fish, and every 10 to 15 yards I was getting bit, and they were just swimming off with it, and I saw some pretty big ones, and I didn't see any bedfish, but I probably had, I'm not saying I saw every fish, but if I had to guess, my weight for my best 5 on practice day was probably 22 to 25 pounds. I had a lot of bites. I probably had 30 bites a day in one of practice, so I had a lot. And then day 2 was a little bit different wind, different, I guess temperature was different. We had a lot of wind day 2. Mm-hmm. The first day we had overcast and it was kind of warm, but anyway, during the tournament it was totally different. It was calm conditions, not a lick of wind. It was pretty warm, chilly in the morning. It's springtime. Of course, it's gonna be a little chilly, but in the afternoons it's really warmed up. And my fishing was kind of tough. I think I only had just shy of 14 pounds for my best 5, which is not what you want on the Delta. You need 20 to 30 pounds, So I think I was sitting in 21st after day 1. So didn't do that great. I was throwing, like I said, I was throwing that worm, a Cinco, or a Magnum trick worm, and then a chatterbait. I caught a couple on chatterbait and punching. I caught a couple of punching. So just kind of mixed it up. Whatever was in front of me, I kind of fished it. So if there was a mat in front of me, I picked up a punch rod and I flipped that mat. If there was sparse tillies, I threw a Cinco or that Magnum trick worm. And then if I had maybe a little bit of sparse grass, I was picking up that chatterbait and just going down the bank and trying to cover as much water as I possibly could. So day 2 for me, I had a little bit better bag. I had just shy of 16 pounds. Had a 6-pounder, 623 was my big one. Caught it on chatterbait. But the wind, I needed the wind, and it did not happen. It was just slick, calm conditions. The only time I had a little bit of wind was when I caught that 623. So, and just throwing a green pumpkin chatterbait, nothing special. And just trying to cover as much water as possible. So didn't have the finish like I would want. I think I finished 19th. Obviously, Luke here did a lot better than I did. You know what? You finished 4th?
Finished 4th, yeah.
I heard it was your best finish, too, on the Delta?
Yeah, best finish on the Delta in a big event, and the biggest bag that I've had on the Delta solo, especially in a tournament. I don't know if I've had any better days fun fishing, but yeah, that was out of the box for me, I guess. In practice, I figured I kind of found something. I caught a couple fish in the 4-pound class, and then each day I did manage to hook into and kind of thankfully lose a big one in practice. You never really like catching them, I got to see them for just a second and they'd pop off. So that was exactly how I wanted it to go. So I had that confidence going in, but me on the Delta, my track record, it's up and down, I'll be honest. So, I did not really know what to expect. People would ask me, what do you think you're going to weigh on day 1? And I'm like, I will weigh between 8 and 20 pounds on day 1, somewhere in there. Yeah. But you don't know. So, thankfully, day 1 didn't go terrible. I went out, caught some fish, and ended up bringing in 14 pounds. I never had a kicker bite, it seemed like almost all 3-pounders. And I think I was like 1 or 2 spots behind you after day 1.
You're right behind me.
22nd, 23rd, somewhere right around there. And then, of course, I had the big day on day 2, which was the saving grace for me. So I weighed 23.89, I think, on day 2. And it started out real slow. On paper, that looks like a great day, but when I go back and look at it, I caught 6 fish all day. First fish in the boat was a 13 1/4 incher. So
hey, keeper,
that was like,
right?
I know, I was like, all right, cool, the keeper. I'm not going to come in with nothing. And then, I went over to another stretch of bank, and at about 9 o'clock, we were having our tide switch. And I told my marshal, I kind of looked back at him, and I was like, hey, the tide's just going to start rolling back in. If I'm going to catch fish, it's going to be now. Because like we all know, those tides really affect when those fish eat on the Delta. Yep. So paying attention to that's crucial. But as soon as that tide started to roll back in, about 10 minutes after I told my marshal that, I caught a 6.5-pounder or 6-pounder. And then about 15 yards down the bank from that, I caught another one that was basically a clone.
Wow.
So back-to-back 6s, and then caught one more other good fish in that area on a spinnerbait, and then I rolled around to an area where I knew some fish were spawning. They were starting to push up shallow. Of course, we were getting that warm weather like we talked about. And some of the Delta right now, it's getting into that 60 to almost 65 degree water temp. So, I mean, when you see that, you know the spawn's going to happen. So I picked up on that and just took a gamble and went over somewhere that I didn't really practice in, but I saw some warmer water in it. So went there and managed to stick like a 4 1/4 and a 3 1/2 off a bed.
Yeah.
So that really helped me out that day. And then, of course, day 3, I kind of went back to my normal Delta-sized bag and caught myself about 13 1/2 pounds.
Yeah. But you did find a big one, though. I heard you saw a 9?
Yeah, I
working
did.
on a 9?
I did. Went back to the same bed fishing area, and sure enough, you know, there were some more good fish in there pushed up on their beds. I saw a couple in the 5 to 6 pound class, and then for the last hour and a half of the day, I locked in on a big one that was probably, you know, 8 to 9 pounds, from what I could tell. So you never know exactly how big they are, but she was a lot bigger than anything I had in the boat at the time. So.
I would have spent a lot of time on that fish trying to get it to go.
Yeah, I did not leave until I was like looking at the clock and I was like, I might be late if I don't leave right now, so I better get out of here. But yeah, sadly could never get her to bite, so that was a little sucky. But yeah, the key baits for me this week, you know, throwing a chatterbait, of course, that's how I caught the 2 back-to-back 6s. They seem to always eat that. And I'm going to throw Tim Hall from the Sac Store under the bus because I came in and had bought some black and blue chatterbaits, some black and blue trailers from the Sac Store the day before. And he told me, he was like, you're buying the wrong stuff. He was like, Pearl's been in here. He's like, you don't want any of that. You're not going to catch any fish. I think he was just trying to get in my head. But,
probably. He likes to do that.
But I was like, you know what? I'm going to prove you wrong. Yeah. So, you know, and that's when I caught my 2 6-pounders on.
Nice.
So,
nice.
And then, you know, of course, bedfish, and you just throw on your worm, whatever else on there, get them mad, and then, yeah, spinnerbait was a big bait for me. So
nice. So I know you kind of come back to the tides, what you're talking about, and so we really had, if you're bed fishing, we had a pretty good tide. We had a lower tide, outgoing low, and so to be able to find bedfish was pretty nice, you know, and with the calm conditions, to really be able to see them. You get any little bit of chop on the water, sometimes it's pretty hard to see the fish.
Calm on day 1 and day 2.
Yeah,
day 3 was not calm.
Yeah. Day 2, we had a little bit of chop in the morning, and you know, like I said earlier, I caught a 623, and I'm like, I need to find more wind, so I actually ran out west, went out to Big Break, and man, it was so calm, not a lick of wind. And I'm like, this was a waste of time running way out there. But I think the thing was that a lot of people were doing well on was the tide. So I think it was the top of the tide was the best, when those fish felt the most comfortable to eat. When these fish get up super shallow, they're spawning. A lot of times those fish don't want to eat when it's the bottomed out. You know, they're only got a foot or 2 above their backs, and they don't feel comfortable, you know. And so with that,
really skittish, any shadows come over, they're gone. I mean, yeah, all that.
And so if you like look at the waves, or you talk to some of the guys that were fishing the event, a lot of the guys did good. The last flight did really the best. They were starting to catch fish at the last 45 minutes to an hour before weigh-in. So, and that's when I did my best too, is when I started catching fish. I caught fish throughout the whole day, but it seemed like the last hour window is when I was doing where I had my better bites.
Yeah. Yeah. So I guess I didn't really follow that plan. I didn't get the memo on that one. I caught fish just randomly throughout the day, but you're right. No, I did notice that on the bedfish. I mean, because I would roll in there at about 10 every morning to where those bedfish were, and we were still on a pretty low tide at that time. And some of those bedfish, I mean, you'd roll up and you'd keep the boat off of them, and you'd make one pitch to them, and like your bait would hit their bed and they'd just be off. I mean, they're gone. So it's crazy. I mean, how much a foot of water will make a difference for those fish. But yeah, sadly those things get pretty hard to catch when it's like that.
Right.
But yeah, overall, really fun event. I mean,
Super
I think everybody who fished it had a great time. I mean, you can't beat going to the Delta.
Right.
And I mean, we were fishing against 48 of the other best guys on the West Coast.
Fish for $100,000.
Yeah, and of course, shout out to Ken Ma. I mean, smashed him day 1, caught him again day 2, and then did enough on day 3, even though he really barely had to do anything on day 3 to maintain his lead. And of course, I think he said, you know, pretty much he was catching them almost the same way as everybody always catches them on the Delta.
It's all about location.
Chatterbaiting.
You know, all about
that
location.
Sort of stuff. So, but anyways, it seems like California is fishing good everywhere, not just the Delta. So I know we were just talking right before this. So, You've got some striper intel. You got some Clear
Yeah.
Lake intel. You got
Folsom
what else?
Lake.
You got Folsom intel.
Yeah, pretty much
Okay.
a 2-hour radius from here in Sacramento. I have a little bit of intel. Obviously, working at the shop, I hear a lot of people, people coming in and talking and whatnot. Clear Lake was fishing really good the last month. With this warm weather, these fish have really pushed to the bank, and now are spawning everywhere. Is at least what I've heard. I was just up there last week. They weren't quite on beds. I did see some fish up there cruising. But they were kind of in that weird funk. I think they were moving shallow. Like I was in staging areas looking for fish, and I only had a couple bites. And then I went shallow and I started flipping, and ended up catching a 917 and a 1020 in the same day. So almost 2 for 20 pounds.
So insane,
dude. It's crazy. I have a video.
That's
coming
worth
out soon.
only catching 2 fish.
Yeah.
Also, yeah,
Yeah.
I do not care if I catch another fish the rest of the day.
Right.
I'd be stoked.
Oh, it was awesome. But I did talk to some guys that did really well on underspins, caught a bunch of fish, bunch of bucks that were moving up, bunch of 2 to 4 pounders. Obviously, you're not going to win a lot of tournaments with that up there. You're going to need 30 to 35 pounds to win. I think there was a tournament up there this weekend. I think it took 26 a day, roughly. I know leader had 27 in the first day, and then I don't know what it took the second day, but I'm sure roughly the same. So when someone stumbles across a school of fish, you can get a big bag and pretty quick. So
yeah.
And then Folsom, Folsom's been fishing really good. That's
Phenomenal.
Just phenomenal. There's a lot of guys catching that 15 to 20 pound bags out there, and so. Which Folsom is right down the street from us for the most part, only 20-25 minutes away. It's a great fishery in the spring. At least you like it better than I do. So
I like fishing it all the time. I mean, that lake, it's a sleeper lake. I think it gets a bad rap, but I mean, it is a difficult lake to fish, especially years past. It'll change overnight. Hard to get bites some days. Blah blah blah. But this year is it's came into a completely different class for itself. I mean. I follow the Folsom Fishing Reports on Facebook and stuff, and there are guys out there catching, that 15 to 20 pound mark consistently.
Yeah.
And I mean, I went out there for just a couple hours on Sunday before our Western shootout event, and I literally saw probably 3 limits of fish that would be pushing the 20 to 25 pound mark just up cruising shallow.
That's awesome.
And there's some water temp in that lake right now in that 60-degree mark, and that was last week when I was out, so it's probably, getting into mid-60s some places. And, I mean, you could just catch a ton of fish. I was messing around. I just got live scope on my boat, so I was testing that out. And I was just going down the bank with a rip bait just to learn the live scope stuff. And I was just catching fish all day long. And it's quality fish, too. 3-pound spots, just like nothing.
What do you think your theory is about why these fish are getting so... I mean, obviously, it's what's the best word I'm looking for? A cycle. When these fish are getting big. I have my theory, but I want to hear your theory about why you think these fish are getting the size quality that they are right now.
So my theory on that is the first one is we got rain this year.
Yep.
Clean, fresh water coming in. It's bringing new nutrients into the lake, and it's starting at the bottom of the food chain. The other thing I've noticed. It started, I think, in 2017 when we had our last rains, is we saw big shad finally show up again.
Yep.
And we did not have those at all. I mean, the bait fish in Folsom before that was
Real
like
small.
an inch long, and you saw that affecting the fish. You had skinny fish, you had small fish. And this year, I haven't spent a whole lot of time out there, to be honest, so I haven't really seen the bait balls like I normally would, but I'm sure they're out there. And the fish are so fat and healthy. I mean, we saw it when we fished our Apex Championship.
Yep.
They were like
super
butter
fat.
balls.
Butter balls. Look like Clear Lake fish.
Yeah, they
Short
do.
and stocky.
They do. Yeah.
So that was good to see.
And it's continuing on. I mean, it's crazy because you go out there a couple of years ago, probably 4 or 5 years ago, and the largemouth population was non-existent.
Right.
Like if you caught a largemouth, you're like, dang, that was kind of,
nice.
That was a good day. Yeah.
Right.
And now you're like, okay, I should catch a limit of largemouth today. Even if they're not all big ones, you can go target largemouth and catch them.
Yeah.
But anyways, what's your theory?
So
I think it's water for the most part.
So I think the last couple of years they were building a pipeline in the South Fork, and they kept the water super consistent. And so the largemouth I felt like were able to spawn successfully because with that water temp starts to come up so fast with all the snow melt we get. I think that when the fish go to spawn, that water's coming up. And so then you don't have the light penetration when those fish are spawning for the eggs to incubate. And I think with that water being consistent last few years, I think that the shad were able to get really big. I think the largemouth were able to spawn successfully. And then on top of that, you have a bunch of cover that's in the water, which when that water starts to drop, you got those spotted bass that are really aggressive, and I think they really put a damper on those largemouth fry. I think they eat them up pretty good. So
and they outperform them just in general, feeding
100%.
wise.
And then on top of that, we had water this year. We had a lot of water this year. Water, a lot of food coming down in the lake. We have there's a lot of debris floating around.
Tons of debris. Be careful out there if you're taking your boat out, because there's a lot. It's like a minefield.
Don't want to take off a lower unit.
Yeah.
So just be careful running around that place. And then, like you said, the shad is just really big. So another thing they just did, it's probably been about 3 weeks ago now, maybe even a month ago, they planted a bunch of 93 or 90,000 fingerling king salmon in there too.
Ooh,
so
those things probably getting smoked.
So the A-rig bite has been, at least what I've heard, has been really good. So
it's gonna be a good glide bait year. Then it sounds like too.
I would say
baits, all that fun stuff.
If they're fingerlings, that 4 to 6 inches, I mean, that's a good swim bait size. So those fish are keen in on that size. So I like to throw big swim baits.
Yeah.
You like to throw big swim baits, probably, kind of, sort of. You like a Cinco.
I
know you.
No, I do. Well, I do like the Sango too, but I'm not great at throwing the big swim baits like the hog hunters, Huddlestons, whatever.
Gotcha.
But I'm a big glide bait guy. I love throwing the glide baits. Those ones are fun. But yeah, I'm not the HUD guy really.
Gotcha.
I mean, I've got them all. I've spent way too much money on them, but I just don't throw them.
Yeah.
I go out and then I'm like, okay, I got to catch fish because I'm in a tournament. So then you're picking up your Sanko or whatever.
Yeah. So. But Folsom's been fishing really good, and I think that was my theory about why I think those fish are getting big. And I think next year they're going to get bigger and big. I think, like you're saying, you're seeing the 15 to 20 pound mark. I think you're going to see like 16 to 21 or 22 pounds next year. So maybe even bigger than that.
I hope 25s next year because I've grown up on Folsom Lake. That's where I first caught my first lake or bass out of a lake, and I have had to fish a semi-okay fishery my whole life for my backyard fishery. I'm not complaining because it's been fun to learn on. But if I can go out in my backyard and catch 20 pounds every time I go out, that's that's a lot better.
Right, 100%.
That's a lot more fun.
100%. So that's kind of what's going on. That the Folsom stripers. We're gonna talk about stripers next.
I
think that's hot right now.
Yeah, actually, I did catch some stripers at the Delta. Go throw a black and blue chatterbait and you'll smoke them on the rock wall. So
you run into them. So stripers, at least what I've heard anyway. I haven't been out, but I've had some buddies going out and smash them. I just been focusing on some tournaments lately, so I haven't been able to get out, but I have some pretty good intel. So the stripers are up in the rivers. They're thick. A lot of guys been going up there and catching them. A lot of schoolie size fish though, not the real big ones. Obviously stripers can get up in that 40 to 50 plus pound range. And so a lot of the fish right now being caught are your 2 to 8 pounders. A lot of your schoolie size fish. So a lot of guys are bouncing minnows, and water temps is still pretty cold. I don't know if you had your graphs on the Delta, because I didn't have them on the Delta because I knew I was fishing shallow. No, I never had my graphs on. So, but you did say you saw 62 or 60. Mid 60s. Once you get in the main channel, it's a little bit cooler, probably 55, 56.
That's what it was in the McCollum. It was about 55 to 56 when we launched in the morning. So
with that water temp still being kind of cool, those fish don't really want to chase anything. So bouncing the minnow has been ideal, catching a lot of fish. But that water temp warms up a couple degrees. That A-rig's gonna smash them. You're trolling. If you're a big guy that likes to troll, you can cover a lot of water trolling and really catch a bunch of fish. The American, I heard there's some fish being showing up on the American, and then I heard down in the Delta out of not Big Break. What's the farther one out west? Drawing a blank here. Anyway, there's out by Rio Vista area. There's some big old school of fish getting ready to come up the rivers to spawn. And so I had talked to a guy, said he had 70 fish in 2 hours. So he just every cast he was fishing. He said his hands were bloody at the end of the day. So he had a little window. They just got on him at the end of the day, and the tide was going out. And he was fishing all these little current breaks, and he said they were just loaded. He said nothing big, but he said he absolutely smashed them. So the stripers have been doing really well right now. And hopefully we get some bigger fish. The shad season should be right around the corner. I did hear some rumors yesterday that there was some shad being caught. So I don't know if you've ever caught shad, but I absolutely love chasing shad up on the American, throwing a float with a little grub on there. And if you can get on a big old school of fish, it's so much fun. They fight super hard. and we pretty much call them the poor man's tarpon because they anyway from like 2 to 4 pounds, and they're a blast. They really are.
Yeah, I went shad fishing on a guided trip probably when I was like 12. It was like one of the first guide trips I ever took. One of the only ones. But yeah, we went shad fishing, and I remember it was a blast.
It's a
we
blast.
caught fish all day long and just smashed them.
Yeah.
I mean, it was pretty fun. And you actually, I mean, like you said, they did fight pretty hard from what I remember. And you catch some pretty decent sized fish.
Yep.
I mean,
Yep.
you know, I'm no shad expert, but you know, it was a good time. I'd go do it again.
Yeah, I definitely recommend if when they start running to go out and chase them. You know, obviously the Americans pretty much in our backyard. You know, but the feather and the sack get a really big population of shad go up those rivers as well. And I've only eaten them a couple times. My dad's actually he pressure cooked them because they have a lot of bones, and so when you pressure cook them, it kind of dissolves the bones, and they're pretty good to eat. But a lot of guys like them. You know, I mostly catch and release, but you know, try something new. You know, a few times that I've had them, they taste pretty good. So I'm excited for those to hit the river and get in the rivers by the thousands, because you can pretty much sit in one spot and make the same repetitive cast and catch them every single cast. So looking forward to that. The stripers will be in the river for the most of the year, and then I'm not too sure about salmon season. I know the ocean's closed, but I heard there might be you know, they might open it up for the river. So won't know that for a few more weeks. So hopefully they do have a season on the river, because I know the halibut are going to get hit pretty hard if they don't. So
halibut are going to get hard. One of the other exciting things, I don't know if you really keep up with much of the ocean fishing. I don't do much, but I'm starting to get more into it. Just working here, hearing everybody else talk about it, is our rockfish opener that's coming up this year. I believe we're slated for sometime mid-May, so we still got a little bit of time to go. But of course, you know, get stocked up on your gear or rockfish gear early. And one of the interesting things about this season is that when it first opens, we got to fish. I think it's deeper than 300 feet, which is going to be a whole different fishery for us. Basically, it's going to open up some new species that, you know, we haven't really seen before or seen up in the shallower water. And hopefully some bigger fish. I mean,
a lot bigger fish too.
I'm excited because I first went out and rockfished for like the first time last year, and I was just like catching lingcod and rockfish, and I was like, dude, it's like bass fishing, except 100%. They pull way harder.
Yeah, pull way harder.
And you catch way more fish.
Yeah.
It's like you just throw a piece of metal out there and you catch them. So and they eat really good.
Yeah.
So that's going to be exciting. Hopefully once that opens up, I'm going to try to hop on a boat early.
Same here.
And, you know, we'll come back and, you know, it won't just be a bass fishing or striper show with us on it anymore. So we'll get some more info for you guys. But yeah, any other fishing that you've been keeping up with aside from what you covered? Striper, Clear Lake, we got Folsom Lake, Delta,
New Maloney's. We had actually one of our coworkers over there at Fisherman's who went over to New Maloney's this last week, and they had a kayak tournament. Every hour away their big fish.
I think was that the biggest kayak tournament on the West Coast?
That's what I heard.
I think.
Yeah. I think a 24-incher. I think one of the hours. I think that was the biggest fish that was measured through that tournament.
That's probably a 7.
Yeah, you know, 24.
I can't remember.
So my personal best bass was 11.4, and it was 24 inches long by 18-inch girth.
Oh,
so
that's where it changes.
The girth, the girth is where it changes. So who knows how? I mean, that fish could have been 11 pounds or it could have been 7 pounds. It depends on how you know the girth on that fish. Yeah. But he said he caught close to 60, 70 fish,
Jeez.
And throughout the whole day, caught most of the fish on a jig, and any soft plastics, he said he just wore them out. He said any way he wanted to catch them, he caught them. So I was like, did you throw a big swim bait? He's like, no, I didn't throw a big swim bait. I'm like, man, you're fishing for a big fish every hour. Why not throw a big swim bait, you know, and get a chance to catch a big one? So, but you know, it sounds like that place is popping off. I mean, everywhere is starting to go. I mean, we have the weather. We just had a full moon 2 weeks ago, roughly. So
we got no moon this week.
Yeah, no moon this week. I think the next full moon will be
the end of this month.
I think isn't it May? I thought it might be the end of this month or the first week of May. And so that'll be our next big wave of fish that are pulling up. And I think it's gonna be really fun to get out there and fish. So I'm looking forward to the next full moon.
Yeah, and I think, I mean, like you said, the next big wave when that moon hits, it's crazy. I mean, I know Alex. I was talking to Alex after day 1 of the tournament or something like that, and he was, he was punching, catching fish, and he had caught a fish and flipped it into his boat deck, and it just started squirting eggs.
Oh, really?
All over the place. I mean, that's how ready all these fisheries are
to
go to the spawn. But we've had this crazy winter and
Yep.
it's been pushed back and back and back.
Yeah, we're really
So-
a month behind or so with
yeah,
everything.
exactly. So all these fish are itching to get to the bank,
Yep.
and all they need is the weather. And I mean, I think they'll even start pushing pretty hard even without the moons.
Yeah.
I don't think they'll
I
really care
agree.
at this point. It's getting
Right.
so late. They just want to go up and
Yeah,
spawn.
it's supposed to
So-
be 80 degrees this weekend too.
it's
so.
going to be phenomenal. So yeah, I mean, if you guys are looking to go out fishing right now is your time to do it. And I mean, and you can go anywhere and catch fish.
Yep.
I know we just covered just about every lake in Northern California,
Yeah.
and you can catch them on anything. It's been
Yeah.
a phenomenal year because I've had good bites on reaction, finesse. It doesn't matter. I mean, and it doesn't really matter what the weather's doing. I mean,
No.
I'm catching reaction fish on slick, calm days,
Yeah.
and finesse fishing and wind. It doesn't matter. You can catch them. I think the fish this year are just happy that we got water.
Yes, 100%.
And they're happy it's finally getting warm,
Yep.
so they'll eat anything.
Yep, I agree.
So, well, anything else in closing? What do you got?
I don't think I got anything else. Hopefully you guys liked what we have to offer for you guys, and if you guys need to pick up anything, just come check us out at Fisherman's Warehouse. Over at Sac Store, Manteca, or Fairfield. If you're in the Sac area, I'll be over there. If you have any questions, come to me or anyone else that's working over there, and we can help you out and find whatever you need.
Yep, and of course, and if you're not in a close proximity to any one of the stores, you can go online to fishermanswarehouse.com and order it directly to your door. We'll ship it, usually a day or two shipping inside California, and then not too bad across the rest of the states.
Yep.
And then yeah, I mean, I think that pretty much covers it. So let us know what you guys think in the comments. Give us a little fishing report yourself. And if there's things we missed that you guys want to hear us talk about next time, be sure to include that. I mean, this is for you guys. We want to teach you whatever we can about fishing. So give us your feedback, and we'll try to be better next time.
Yeah, 100%.
So, all right. Well, we'll see you down at the store, and hopefully you guys catch some big fish.
All right, later, guys.
See ya.